long story short, I go to jail. I go to prison 10 hours away in Dublin, California at a federal prison. I'm in
I know
Idaho,
Dublin.
right?
Yeah, I know
There's no
Dublin.
federal prisons in Idaho. So I'm 10 hours away from my kids. Well, the day I get sentenced, my husband leaves me. He's like, this isn't really working out.
All right, I'm here with Melody Watts. She is a holistic health coach and business strategist for alternative health and medicine practitioners. I
Yeah.
think is the best way to say it.
Yeah.
Awesome to have you on the show and just to be here in person. We get to finally do this. And you're also one of my mentors. I always credit, you and I talk to a lot of people and all the help that you've helped me. And so it's really just great to be one-on-one here in person and share your story with the world because I think it's really important to hear.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So I thought to just kind of start things off, when people probably look at your life, they're going to say, well, man, Melody, like she has it all. Like it must have just been so easy for her, but it wasn't always that way, right?
No. Actually, my dream was to be a stay-at-home mom and raise a bunch of kids and stay home. That was my dream. I should
Mission
say.
accomplished, by the way,
Yes,
now.
yeah. And by the way, I think that's amazing, right? And that's what I wanted, and that was kind of my programming actually, as a child. And as I had children, and they started developing health problems, and I was dealing with my own health problems, and having been through the medical treadmill as a child, I was not interested in putting my kids through this medical treadmill. I mean, everything from when I was a little girl, being hospitalized for pneumonia and tonsillitis right after vaccines, and then having chronic ear infections, and then being put on the antibiotics for half my childhood. Because of the chronic ear infections, which we know are super easy to clear without invasive super antibiotics, right?
I'm laughing because this sounds like my childhood, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, all of us that grew up in the 80s,
Yeah.
this was our childhood, right? And then you deal with, of course, autoimmune conditions, suppressed immune system, chemical sensitivities, things like that because of the medical treadmill that I was put through. So I was super not interested in putting my kids through that. And so when my son was like 3, he started developing this cough, and it would happen at night. And my other nieces and nephews, one of them had asthma. And so I was really concerned, some of these things are genetic. And so after a few months of trying everything that I could think of, I took him to the doctor begrudgingly, right? Just to see if they could tell me why he had this cough.
You already knew then, though, that there was something with the Western doctor. You already felt like in your heart, like something's just not right here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I just, I got introduced to chiropractic in my early 20s, and it completely changed my mindset around the human body, what it's capable of, what it's born to do, and just modern medicine.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that opportunity because it really set me on this path that I feel like is my life calling, which is teaching people that they can heal and they can be empowered in their home. And it's been one of my life missions, and I absolutely love it. I'm so passionate about it. Just teaching mothers how to become healers in their own home and people to be healers of their own lives. It's just a passion of mine. So when I started working, so when I had my children, they were adjusted. They were born at home. They were adjusted by a chiropractor within 24 hours, and breastfed until they were 2. I would have probably gone longer if I wasn't dealing with Lyme disease. So I was dealing with Lyme disease, which I'm certain I passed on to my children, but we'll talk about that later.
Made them more resilient.
That's right. Yeah. Hopefully they're more resilient than me. It's so much more common than people think, having these different deep underlying co-infections, but we'll get to that later. So my son developed this little cough. I was like really begrudgingly went to the doctor because I was like, maybe they can tell me why he's coughing, And they were just like, well, here's some allergy meds and steroids. And I was like, what? Can you tell me why he's coughing? And this is literally the first time my kids have been to the doctor, 3 years old, like never seen a doctor, born at home, right?
Yeah.
Back then, it's one of those things where CPS probably comes to your house because you don't take your kid to the doctor ever, right?
Yeah.
Back then, you didn't have CPS always knocking on your door. Moms these days, they really have to keep their kids hidden if they don't want their kids going, why haven't you taken your child to the doctor, right? It's neglectful or something.
It's so funny. I'm just going to interrupt because it's so funny you say that. With my first kid, we did all the appointments. We brought him to the doctors for his whatever checkups, like his just 3-month checkup, 6-month checkup. They measure his head, they measure him, right? And with my second child, we did none of that. And I will say, unfortunately, my second child, just like what you said, was born at home. He got adjusted within the 24 hours. he's much more healthy. Unfortunately, I hate to say that, but it just is. I can compare the two.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny with this whole pandemic that has happened, and a lot of people have gone to other states and stuff like that. And I remember one of my friends reached out to me asking for advice, and he actually moved to Florida. He went from California to Florida, and he asked me, "Hey, Joel, but like, what are you doing for medical?" He said, "What are you gonna do and like for your kids and checkups?" Because he has a young kid. And I said, "Gordon, I'm like, what do you even need the Western doc for?" I said, "What are they going to do? Measure his head, measure his height, tell him that he's on like the normal spectrum as them now?" And he looked at me and he goes, "Yeah, I guess you're right." But it's just interesting. It almost takes someone to like me or you to like kind of take people out and go like, what do you really need this for? Because they're not actually curing or
outside of emergencies, it's almost completely pointless.
100%.
I do like, I wouldn't say that Western medicine is completely obsolete, because it's nice occasionally for some diagnostics.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like
yes.
I will say, I like that integrated approach when it comes to diagnostics. But when it comes to actually treating the condition, they're just not trained,
Correct.
Unfortunately. You see a lot of people, they're really getting raked through the coals right now, the medical profession.
They
They
really
get made fun of because they're just not taught, how to take care of the body as a whole. And it's sad. Like, but I do like that mothers know more about their children's health than their doctors do. And that's as it should be.
Yeah.
So this was me going in kind of still, this was, 15 years ago. So this is me kind of trying to understand. This is before there was this big wave of like mothers taking control of their children's health. This was I was kind of an early adopter. And so they were like, well, we can give him allergy meds and steroids. I said, well, do you know why he has a cough? And they're like, no, it's genetic. Some kids have these things, right? And I'm just like, you went to school to tell me you don't know why my kid is sick? Like, really? Like, it was just really extremely disappointing. So I went home, of course, with no answers. And even the alternative medicine docs didn't have answers for me at that time. So it was pretty frustrating. So I was introduced at that time to essential oils, and I had tried essential oils from the store, Vicks rubs and things like this, and it didn't work. So I was like, well, I'm just going to try this to see how it goes. I was seeing like some biofeedback lady. She gave me some oils. I put them on my son's chest and feet, slept through the night, no coughing. For the first time, I had a peaceful night's sleep. I think it had been 6 months. I was worried. I felt super helpless. I felt like a failure as a mom too.
Yeah.
Like I felt like I should, like if the doctors can't figure it out, it's on me to figure it out. And I wasn't willing really just to give him these allergy meds. And I remember calling my sister. And of course, if push came to shove, I would have, right? Like if it was the point where he's not breathing, of course, I'm not going to, let him not breathe. And I do think meds are there for emergency situations, right?
100%.
But I called my sister, and her son, has asthma. And I'm like, hey, does this, I can't remember the name of the drug. Does this work? She's like, oh no, that's a complete waste of money. That one didn't work at all. Like try something else. Right. And so, interestingly enough, I learned through my research of epigenetics that the reason why my son and her son had these respiratory issues was because 4 generations earlier, my great-grandmother, so his great-great-grandmother, was a chain smoker. So what happens is the genetic trigger or message is air is toxic, and it turns out that the 4th generation expression of of our ancestors were exposed to, it's much more prevalent in the 4th generation.
Wow.
So you might see my grandmother not really having any symptoms at all. But then you might see my dad having mild allergies or something, and then you might see my brothers having allergies, which they did, not asthma, but they had really bad allergies, right? Yeah. And then you see our children have full-blown asthma. So you're seeing these epidemics, right, going on of this. Now, my son didn't ever develop asthma. I happened to catch this cough early enough. And what I realized what happened is, and it's interesting because remember, my great-grandmother smoked. So I learned my son actually turned on the genes for chemical sensitivities, and the genetic message is air is toxic. Mm-hmm. So what happens to the air around him that he's breathing in, whether it's from candles or Glade plugins or cleaners or herbicides, that's actually what he was sensitive to. He's sensitive to chemicals. So if I would have given him prescriptions, he would have been the side effects, right? Of prescriptions, he would have full-blown manifest all the side effects because he had chemical sensitivities. That's what was causing his cough. So it wouldn't have actually ever even helped him. Yep. So the fact that I was able to use these oils, which of course are organic molecules, your body recognizes them. So people will go, well, aren't essential oils chemicals, right? Aren't they just chemicals? And it's like, and this is like the biggest misconception, especially among like, even in the alternative medicine world, there's a handful, very small percentage of like aromatherapists and like herbologists and these people that are like, oh, essential oils are chemicals. They're VOCs, just like all these other things. It's like they don't understand it's a completely different molecule. So you have your organic ones and then you have your synthetic ones. And it just so happens that the organic ones your body recognizes, and when it attaches to the cell receptor sites, your body recognizes it and utilizes it, actually turns on good genes. And it doesn't harm microbiome and mucosa like some of these, anti-oil people say. It's like it's complete myth how it actually works with the body. But yes, if I were using herbicides or synthetic smells or fragrances and things like that, yes, it's going to hurt the mucosa. It's going to hurt the microbiome. It's going to turn on bad genes. It's going to, people that have a hard time with methylation, they're going to have a hard time with these things. But with organic molecules that the body recognizes, it's not going to have that problem. You're not going to have those problems that other chemicals have. So that's a big, big misconception.
Yeah.
That there's a little small percentage of alternative medicine people that really don't understand essential oils, and it's kind of painstakingly obvious, because then they're selling these like kind of weak sauce herbal tinctures. They're like, oh, we hate essential oils, and it's like, but buy our weak sauce herbal tincture that we made in our backyard. Like, that's cute, but I want something regulated and tested, right? I don't want, and I think it's cute. You can make stuff from your backyard, but when it comes to like medicinal needs for my children, I want something regulated. I want something tested for glyphosate and pathogens and things like that, because I'm using it as if it's medicine, right?
Yeah.
So that was a really long introduction on how I got introduced to essential
cool.
oils.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was it. From that point, this light bulb went off, and I was like, wow, if these can help my son increase his oxygen saturation, by the way, these essential oils can do that. If they can calm down his respiratory system, stop the spasming, all these things, then as I researched, finding out what is actually triggering him, which is these chemicals, then I was able to really learn about the biochemistry of essential oils and how to be really empowered in my home. So I started working on myself. At the time I had Lyme disease, and although I don't claim that essential oils are a cure-all or that they cure Lyme disease, I certainly don't claim that. But what I will say is there's certain things essential oils can do for biofilm. There's certain things that it can do for antioxidant support, helping with anxiousness and stress, sleeplessness, head pain, things like this, that I was no longer going to my Advil.
Yeah.
I was no longer needing Benadryl, things like this that I was having to take, even though I was super natural. When you need an antihistamine, you need an antihistamine. And so now I'm able to take histamine balancing oils without these crazy side effects. So I was able to really dive in and work on myself and my children. And as I did that, I couldn't help myself. I had to share. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, and I don't think a lot of people know this, but I'm just going to dive into it right away. Like you are very bullish on doTerra essential oils specifically. We'll talk about that brand, but I just want to get it out of the way. Like, you're a top earner with doTerra, top 1%. I mean, we're talking like 7 figures, yearly doing doTerra, which I think is just fantastic and really cool. But, how did you get started? How did you get started with doTerra and actually kind of going into the business side of it?
So I actually hated, I know we're going to talk about this a little later, but I actually hated the idea that it was network marketing.
Yes.
Because when you're into alternative health, everyone tries to get you to do their MLM.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so when I was using the oils, luckily the person that approached me was just very sincere. I think I can help you with your son's cough, right? It was just like, it wasn't this, hey, sell my product, you can make me a lot of money, which I felt like was the approach of a lot of network marketers at the time. Yeah. And so because she just approached me to solve my problem, she probably didn't realize that I was somebody that could sell or whatever. Like, she just was like, try this. It was just a very authentic, I want to help you with your son. I can see you're, in distress. So when I did that, I was actually so broke at the time. It was like, let's see, what year would it have been? 2010, I think. Yeah, right around 2010, 11, maybe 12. I was so broke at the time that I couldn't even buy the essential oils that I needed. So like I had, and so the person that approached me with this, that they were trying to get me to, well, now that it works so well, do you want to buy, a starter kit? Do you want to buy the, home starter kit package, And I was like, oh, I didn't even have $150. And so she's like, well, if you want to host a class, she was like, if you can get 5 people there, I'll give you $50 in free oils. If you can get 10 people there, I'll give you $100 in free oils. So I got 4 people there.
Nice.
So I got no free oils.
Nothing. Yeah.
But
I would have paid a friend to show up and be the 5th person.
Yeah, I should have done that. So I remember, but I told her, I said, I will host a class for you, but if you talk about the business, I literally will kick you out. Like, if you start drawing circles, if you start telling people how they can make $1 million, like, you will be kicked out of my house. That's how anti-MLM I was, because I was just so turned off by all the approaches I had previously.
Yeah.
So when she was like, oh, no, I'm just going to teach people how to use oils. I was like, that's what I want. You can come teach people how to use oils. So she came and she does this Oils 101 class. And I was blown away by the information. I was like, oh my gosh, 70% of pharmaceuticals come from natural botanicals, and there's chemical constituents and menthol, and it's menthol in nature instead of menthol from the store. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been looking for my whole life. It was like this big light bulb. And then all she had was a little sign-up sheet that said, would you like to host a class for free oils? Like, that was it. She didn't talk about the business, right? Yeah. She promised she wasn't going to talk about it, but she just had a little list there, right? And I think almost everyone at my class, I think all 4 of them signed up to host a class. And so I was like, so after the end of the class, I just went up to her and I was like, you know what? I'm doing this as a business. I just told her, I was like, I've been approached by so many network marketing companies. I said, but this one actually solved a problem for me.
Yeah.
And this approach of hosting a class and not telling me I'm going to make $1 million, like, I liked this. I can do this. And so right away, I started sharing just with my friends and family, getting very excited about the product. And it was the first time that when I shared the product and or the business that it stuck, that it worked, right? So I had kind of dabbled a little bit in network marketing. I'd never, I'd tried a couple travel ones and, just here and there, like people promising all this money, right?
I've been there and done that too.
And it just never stuck. And so when this stuck, I was like, and then my upline was like, I was like, well, how much do you make? And she was like, I make $400 a month. And I was like, whoa. I thought it was awesome. I was like, that's my car payment. Yeah. I just thought it was so awesome that she was making $400 a month. I was like, that would pay for my oils and my car payment. I was like, if she can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
Right. And so that whole process happened. And then shortly after that, I was actually a real estate agent and the market crashed. I guess this would have been 2009 then. Yeah, 2009. Yeah. I was a little ahead of myself. So the market crashes. I'm selling real estate and nothing's selling. So of course I had no money to buy oils. And during that time, actually, because I had a lot of listings, I had about 20 million in listings. Wow. None of them were selling. They were like just sitting there, right? Like being turning into short sales and foreclosures.
By the way, real estate agents are like some of the most stressful people I've ever met. Like they all need to be on oils.
They all need on oils. Oh, 100% agree with you on that one. So anyway, I'm sitting there, nothing's selling. And the FBI knocks on my door one day. And I've got like this 9-month-old that I'm nursing when they come to my door. And, I just kind of started dabbling in oils. And they basically were like, hey, we see that you overstated your income on a home loan in 2007 or whatever. And, we know a lot of Americans did this. Probably over 1 million Americans did this. But we're just targeting you because you're a prominent real estate agent. And, so sorry about that. But anyway, we're targeting you.
Wow.
They just didn't even care that. And I was sitting there like, what? And they didn't, of course. And I had never gotten anything more than a speeding ticket, in my life.
Yeah.
And so I had no clue about government and their ways. I am wise now.
Yes. Yeah, I think if anybody the last 2 years is woken up to the government.
I think a lot of people have kind of woken up to how much they don't really care, right? And so at that time, because I did overstate my income on a home loan, even though I didn't really have a lot to do with the whole application process or anything, like I gave the bank my bank statements, I gave them my profit and loss, but they filled out the application and all they really cared about was my credit score and the appraisal anyway. And it was like this whole thing. And
it's not like you're Al Capone evading taxes here.
No, and I think I was like 28. I mean, I was young. I guess this would have been 20. Yeah, I mean, I was maybe 28 when I did this home loan, so I wasn't like super savvy in regards to just banks and whatever. I had barely gotten my real estate license, and so just kind of a young. And again, I didn't want to work. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. So that was even like the salt on the wound. Like if I wouldn't be working, this would have never happened.
Yeah.
But I was working because my husband at the time, we just needed that extra income. So long story short, they convicted me of mortgage fraud, making a false statement to a bank, sentenced me to 15 months in a federal prison based on the loss that the bank took.
Wow.
Which I think was like $330,000. That's the loss the bank took because it was a home that was worth $1.2 million that then overnight was worth, $700,000 or $800,000.
Yep.
And it was an investment home. So the day that I am sentenced, which I thought I was going to get probation, right? Like I thought, why would they want to put a stay-at-home mom in prison? When a million other moms, like a million other people did this, and they know that I didn't have criminal intent. You're supposed to have criminal intent to go to prison, by the way. Like they just overlooked that, right?
Yes.
So they sentenced me to 15 months, and because they wanted to make an example out of me. Like that was the whole point. So I'm in shock. This judge sentenced me to 15 months. I'm nursing my, but by the time this all got to sentencing, I wanted to fight it. But my attorney, I was like, I did not lie to that bank. They had my bank statements. They had full disclosure. They refused to let me talk to the underwriter. I mean, I was upset.
Yeah.
And they were like, listen, you can fight it if you want. But when the government comes after little people like you, like 98% chance that they'll win. And then you'll get 5 years instead of possibly probation.
Wow.
And I wasn't willing to risk 5 years without my kids. They were 2 and 5. It was just, there's no way. So I signed. Yeah. I mean, he's like, listen, all they really care about is that you signed the application. That's all that's all that the judge is going to instruct the jury. If you take this to trial, did she sign the application? This is what you base it on, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So long story short, I go to jail. I go to prison 10 hours away in Dublin, California at a federal prison. I'm in Idaho, right?
Yeah, I know.
There's no federal prisons in Idaho. So I'm 10 hours away from my kids. Well, the day I get sentenced, my husband leaves me. He's like, this isn't really working out.
I didn't sign up to be a stay-at-home dad.
Excuse me, what?
That was your dream.
I'm like, excuse me? It was complete shock to my system. When he did this, I was like, okay, how's this going to work? I'm thinking you're going to move to California with the kids so you guys can visit me every weekend. Like, nope, that's not happening, right? Like, he's leaving me. So I'm like, how am I going to do this without seeing my kids? I can't go. I remember being a real estate agent showing homes for 3 or 4 hours in one day and missing my baby for those 3-4 hours. How am I going to be away from my kids for, 15 months? And I just was devastated. Complete devastation. And then having him leave me, I was just like, what is happening? And then I just thought I was this horrible person. I was like, well, this is obviously happening to me because I'm a bad wife and I'm a bad mom and God must be punishing me. Like I was thinking all these horrible things about myself. And if I was a good person, this wouldn't even be happening to me. God must be punishing me. And I kind of had all these things go through my head, right? And it was kind of in alignment with what my husband was telling me too. Like my husband at the time was like, nobody likes you. Like you brought this on yourself. Like if you weren't so, kind of like, what's the word he used? Domineering. Yeah. If you weren't so domineering and more submissive, some of the things, he made me kind of feel like I was kind of a loser. Right.
Wow.
So I get to prison and I'm just like, I wanted to die. Like the only thing keeping me going was my kids. I just wanted to die. Prison, well, I work with this case manager. She ends up giving me 6 months halfway house time. So I ended up only having, and then I had 2 months good time and 2 months house arrest. So I ended up spending 7.5 months in the federal prison. And in that time, my parents did bring my kids to come visit me. So that was obviously good. But during that time, I really did a lot of meditation and just self-reflection and healing. And I got my self-worth back. It was actually really good for me to get out of that marriage. It was not a healthy marriage. I didn't recognize it until I got away from it.
Yeah.
So once I got away from it, I started recognizing my self-worth, that I was good enough, that I was a good mom, that I was providing for my children, that I was, doing all the things, even that I was a good wife. I had all these things that I realized while I was there contemplating. Well, the first 3 months I beat myself up.
Right.
And the second 4 months I became empowered.
Nice.
So it was like this flip. So when I got out, shortly after I got out, my mom died in a car accident. And so I was pretty, it was like one thing after another, right? Boom, 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 boom. So I get out. My mom dies in a car accident. So she was the main caretaker for my kids because my ex-husband moved away. So he moves. So I go to prison. He moves away. My kids are kind of left parentless. My mom steps in and she takes care of my kids, my mom and dad.
Yep.
And they were so awesome to be able to do that. Well, as soon as I get out of prison, my mom dies in a car accident. My kids lose their other main caretaker, right? So my kids kind of went back to back to back with these childhood traumas, I guess. And so because the government, I was in a halfway house, they would only let me work like a W-2 job, like I had to be an employee. They wouldn't let me start my own business.
Yeah.
And it was actually after I got out of the halfway house that my mom died in this car accident. So when she died, I had no one to take care of my kids while I'm going to work and whatnot. So I'm taking my daughter to daycare, and I pick her up one day, and she just is crying the whole day. The red face, the lines under the eyes, just puffy, because she just was not acclimating. She was like, I've been bounced around from caretaker to caretaker. I don't even know who my mom is at this point, And I just picked her up one day and I was like, that is it. Like, I am done. My children need me. I need time freedom and I need money freedom.
Yeah.
Right? So I, at that point, kind of burned the boats.
Love it.
I told the government, I'm gonna work from home, this 9-to-5 job or whatever, but I'm starting my own business. So you guys are going to have to just deal with it. I'll still get paid, whatever. And at that point, I was on my way out anyways. I was like house arrest. So within 2 months of me deciding I need to be home with my kids and not taking my kids to daycare anymore, I was making about $2,000 a month. And that was enough for me to I was on food stamps. So between food stamps and this $2,000 a month, that was enough. Within 2 months of that, I was making about $4,000 or $5,000 a month. And at that point, I was able to get off food stamps. I remember renting a minivan. My ex-husband hated minivans, never let me get one.
You showed him.
I showed him, right? I was like, with the newborn, getting in the jacked up truck, that was me with the newborn, right? And I was like, no, you watch. I'm getting a minivan. These doors are sliding right open. So I rented a minivan, drove to California, took my kids to Disneyland. That was like my celebration for hitting this goal of, $5,000 a month.
Yeah.
And within a year, I was making multiple six figures. And within 3 years, I was making about $500,000 a year. And by the 6th or 7th year, I was making 7 figures. So it was that was my thing. And I think my drive was, I need time freedom. I know network marketing works because I was able to see other people around me do it. And it's like that 4-minute mile.
Yeah.
And I was like, if they can do it, I can do it. And so it just brought this belief in me, and I had a deep why. And I think people are so programmed, just like they are in the medical field. Like, we have to go to the doctor when we're sick, and take a pill, and that's what's going to get us better. We're programmed to trade time for dollars.
Yep.
Since we're, or services for dollars.
I was programmed, go to school, get good grades, go to college, and then go out and get a job in the 9-to-5, get a pension, marry a wife at 30, have some kids, and have a white picket fence. And then when you're 50, go collect your pension and supposedly live a good life.
Yeah. That's what we're taught. And so for me, I was like, I need time freedom. I
Yeah.
want to be here for my kids. They need me on an emotional level. And I felt like that was my call, my number one calling, like the emotional and physical and spiritual needs of my kids is what was my main priority and my why. So when I started doing this and started making this income and just realizing like, I don't know that I could like some people go, and there's other ways to make residual income, franchises, there's owning a business, there's other ways to make
owning real estate, which is what you did.
Owning real estate. Yeah. There's other ways to have residual income. But what I loved about this particular business model is it didn't take an investment. The only investment was my time, right? And my energy and my investment in myself and my own ability to sell and develop myself. And I thought it was so weird. I thought it was going to take away from me being a mom. It actually made me a better mom. So like all these things it made me better as. It showed my kids good work ethic. It showed them all these things. So yeah, that's my business story.
Okay. So amazing. There's so many things to unpack too. So I want to just say, and especially, you just hosted a mastermind retreat just a month ago, and we're starting to do more of those. And one of the things I find just really amazing about you is too, how you blend in some of the things you talk about is the mindset, right? It's not just, the business, the oils, like that's all fun, but there's a mindset that goes behind that and having that. And clearly you have that. And that's why you emphasize it with us and the other people that you're sharing oils with, which I think is really, really important. Also, I want to just highlight the part about the MLM because I can totally relate. When I graduated high school, I was 18 and I was doing multiple sales jobs and I could sell enough. And so I would get approached by all these other guys doing MLMs and they were like, hey, come on. And I joined a couple of them, fiddled around, didn't like them. And so in the past, I had heard about when it was the same thing. We had our first kid. We started using essential oils, not doTerra, just other brands. And I knew about them. I knew that they worked. I was total natural health guy. I'm like, yeah, let's use the oils. But when I was asked about doTerra, I'm like, I don't know. Something about the MLM. I'm just kind of feel weird about that, right? Mm-hmm. Fast forward now, it's like, who knows, 10 years now go by. I'm in Idaho and, connected with some health coaches on your team and that I actually really trusted. And so that was a big deal. Just like you, they approached my wife and then my wife kind of approached me and I trusted them because they built businesses. And I also knew they're not the type of people that are, oh yeah, they're trying to sell us. Like, no, they're like, this really works. Like you should use it. Yeah. And we were using it at home. Same thing. My wife used it on the boys. They had a respiratory condition and they slept through the night. And she was like, Joel, these oils are different than anything we've used in the past. I'm like, really? So that was like aha moment number one for me. Matter of fact, last night my son had some sinus issues, put some frankincense, some On Guard, some Aroma Touch. Thanks to your husband, Walter. We just talked about that at the retreat. He's like perfect again today.
I love it.
Yeah. So that was the same thing for me. And then that was what kind of like dropped my guard with the whole MLM because I know that like really kind of bothers people. And then the other thing for me was actually meeting you and just seeing what you're all about. And I got really inspired just hearing your story, but also the leadership that you provide and the care that you have for like really wanting to grow leaders. And I thought, okay, I have a sales background. I built my own coaching business the last year when I got fired from my 9-to-5 job and I was forced to leave. And now just after a year of building my own business, it went well. But I also noticed I was very time poor. And so the same thing attracted me, but I want to just go back and say again, it was the leadership that I saw with you and that excited me. I was like, okay, I want to be connected with her and be on our team. And I feel like I can really grow this. So I just want to say the same thing when it comes to MLM, do whatever you want. And this is not to sell anybody on it, but have a great product, which we could talk about the sourcing with doTerra, the sourcing and the quality. And then I think for me, the most attractive thing is really just the leadership. And I try to tell everybody that it's not just about selling oils or whatever. It's about who you become as a person.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. And I know, and like the main thing you talk about, time poor, right? That is the big thing is I work with a lot of super successful health entrepreneurs. And the one thing that they don't have is time.
And by the way, we won't say names here, but I know some of the people you work with. These are 7-figure.
Some of them are 8-figure earners.
7-8-figure earners. They're doing very well. Go to their Instagram profiles. They have 2,200,000 followers. When you look at them, you're like, They don't need doTerra. They don't need this.
Mm-hmm.
But what do they tell you all the time when you talk to them?
Well, one, they align. I think a lot of these people that have met that level of success, they're looking for something that aligns with their core values. And doTerra, the way that they source, the way that they run their business is high integrity, high core values. That's one of the things that really attracts really successful people to doTerra. The other thing that attracts people is they do want the time freedom. They see, I'm over here working. I probably work 20 hours a week. I could work less, but I enjoy working. It's something I enjoy doing. That's just like my thing. If I'm ever in a funk, just put me to work and I'll be happy.
I'm the same way.
You know what I mean?
I'm a dog. I'll work.
Like I'm always glad when I have an appointment. Like if I'm in a funk and I have an appointment that day, I'm always glad because it gets me, serving people, doing what I love gets me out of that funk. It gets me into my zone of genius, what I like to call.
Yeah.
So I love to work. So I work 20 hours a week. That's by choice. I could maintain my business probably on 5 hours a month, but I love what I do. So they want that time freedom. Most of them are working. Some of them are working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. Some of the 8-figure ones are not. They've got the time freedom, but they love the idea of building teams and developing people. So that's sometimes the draw is they see I can develop people and help them make 6 figures, and that's what makes them tick. Yeah. So they're not necessarily doing it for the time freedom, some of the 8-figure people, but the 6 and 7-figure people, a lot of them, they just are they're ragged. Yeah. They're tired, and they need to link arms with a residual type income. And they see doTerra high retention rate, longevity of a company, growth rate, international markets, releasing new products, and they go, okay, that's a strong company I can link arms with. Those are what smart business people look at. You see people jumping from MLM to MLM, kind of at the smaller scale, and that's what gives MLMs a bad name. Yeah. Is some of these fly-by-nighter, companies that crash and burn. But when you can link arms with a legacy company that's been around 14 years, that they're already multi-billion-dollar company, they're opening new markets, they're debt-free, you start to see a trend of stability, and you go, okay, I can work with this company. And they're looking at those things because they've done business before and they know what to look for. Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about doTerra, but I also want to ask you, what is the most common thing that or rebuttal that you get from people when you're talking about MLMs? Is there one that like always comes out to you like, oh, I have to buy the product, or like, what do people have?
Some of them are like, is there a minimum I have to order? And I said, when you do the business, you do have to order a minimum. It's, enough personal product. It's like $100 a month. And I'm like, but
I waste that on our toothpaste and
But I wouldn't even say it's an objection. They just say, what's the minimum? They're curious, like, what is it? And I say, your customers don't have a minimum, but if you are doing the business, there's a $100 minimum. I mean, what kind of a business has, you should buy $100 worth of product for yourself?
Yeah.
That's the requirement. It's really low. And unfortunately, that's what oftentimes makes people not put enough effort in. It's because they're just not putting in enough, skin in the game. They don't have any skin in the game. $100 a month is nothing.
It's nothing. Yeah.
It's like what they spend on their own personal care products. So it's nothing. And so sometimes people don't take it seriously enough because they don't have enough risk. Whereas if I had $200,000 in a chiropractic degree, I'm going to make and $50,000 into my office build out. Guess what? I'm going to be working sun up to sundown to make sure I have patients in that clinic.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just a different mindset when you're into something $250,000 as opposed to $100. So that's like the one, I would say that's the one of the drawbacks to getting people to really like for me, I had a money need.
Yeah. You had a big why.
I had a big why. Yeah. So if somebody doesn't have a big why and they're just kind of like, they won't necessarily be as successful.
Yeah. That makes sense. I just find myself, we spend that on just our personal care products, toothpaste, dishwasher soap around the house. And it sounds like, oh, but why were you going to waste that money on that product? There's a great book I always tell everyone about Dr. Shauna Swan called Countdown. And she talks about all these estrogenic compounds that are, you talk about epigenetics. Well, we know right now men are on TRT way too early in their lives. Women are on IVF therapy. How are all these issues happening? And she correlates it all to these estrogenic compounds. So I'm more than happy to spend the $100. I don't spend just on that. And the other thing I'll say is the more I've started using the oils, I just get excited about all these new oils. We were doing just a retreat at your house recently, just learning about how emotions and oils carry frequencies with them. Mm-hmm. And I see in every client I have ever coached, there is always an emotional component
always
behind their healing.
Oh, for sure.
Always. And so I think like, wow, if you could use an oil to anchor that and kind of just change or help change in your body quickly, emotions and feelings, like that'd be a great way to get you to move towards your health, right? So there's just so
Absolutely.
many different things you can do other than just, yes, immunity, but then in the emotional level. And then, of course, you're talking about energy, like using peppermint and using things to increase oxygen saturation and stuff like that.
They're so incredibly versatile.
Yes.
And that's, I think, what the appeal is for so many people is almost every product is made from essential oils, right? Whether they're fake oils or good oils or not. So what I love about using doTerra oils is I can trust it because it's measured, it's tested, it's regulated. They do 54 tests. Nobody does that. Their co-impact sourcing model. Nobody sources oils the way that they do. Everyone uses brokers. So it's just it's a very unique way. They have they've put over $130 million into their sourcing. So people go, why are doTerras more expensive? Oh, it's because it's an MLM. And it's like, no, they spend about the same amount of marketing as any other company spends on marketing as far as percentage wise. It's their sourcing. They're sourcing cleaner, better, more regulated oils, and that costs money. So when people are selling frankincense for $4 a bottle, that's not real frankincense. It's a very laborious process to harvest frankincense. So if you want to pay the growers and the harvesters what they're worth, that's where the money comes in. It's not the sales reps. It's like paying the top 1% of sales reps $1 million a year. That's not a lot of marketing dollars, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Like companies spend millions and millions of dollars on marketing. So the fact that they're paying sales reps instead of Facebook ads, great. Instead of Zuckerberg, they're paying me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So people, they think it's like, oh, you're paying that MLM markup. It's like, no, you're paying for a higher quality oil and we can prove it. So
what would you say also just last thing kind of on doTerra, like what would you say about just the growth that we're seeing with doTerra kind of expanding and just some of the new things that we're looking forward to?
Yeah, well, anytime you see a company that's continuing to open brand new markets, we just opened in India and Chile and Colombia and Brazil. We're getting ready to open in Dubai and Indonesia. I've got a team in Indonesia. I've got a team in New Zealand. Anytime you're seeing this international type global growth, you're seeing a universal product that speaks to humans, right? And so we know we have that. We have an incredible team at doTerra's corporate office. They're very connected to the sales reps, where sometimes you'll see a disconnect between corporate and the sales reps. So it's really nice to have the integrity of a company that really cares about their sales reps. They value us highly, right? So they take good care of us. But the growth that we're seeing is really, really steady. And in international markets, we're seeing really explosive growth. And here in the U.S., we're seeing really steady growth. So it's just, only 2 out of 100 Americans use doTerra. And until 100 out of 100 Americans are using doTerra, my work is not finished.
Okay, I wanted to ask you that because you're highly successful, and I look at you, I look at your life, your home. You haven't made, right? Like people would say that, right? And so I'm always curious. Even when you spend time with me, I'm like, why does she care? Like, I'm a nobody. Like, I'm just a small guy. Like, what drives you at this point to like continue? You have the money, you have the time freedom. That's what you wanted. Check. So what drives you now?
Well, I always go back to like what I feel like my life purpose is. By the way, I don't think you're a nobody. I don't hang out with nobodies.
That's a terrible thing, by the way. And I'm very big on subconscious. And I got to stop saying stuff like that. Yeah.
Here's why. You're a world changer, right? So I like to hang out with people who are like-minded world changers because that's where I can make the biggest impact, right? Is connecting with people who are on the same mission. And we're on the same mission. So connecting with people like you energizes me, right? And so you might feel like I'm pouring into you, but I feel a mutual exchange when I'm with a world changer. So for me, it serves me as well to hang out with people that are purpose-driven, that are mission-driven, that want to help people heal. Like that's what I want to see. I don't want to see one more mom get frustrated. I'll tell you what, those mom Facebooks, I had to get out of all of them because they just, so many of them are struggling with just their kids' health. They don't know what to do. They're just stuck in this mainstream model. And if you're in a Facebook group that's not run by you, nobody allows you to like recommend, a product, for heaven's sake. Of course not an MLM product.
Unless it's sponsored.
You'd get kicked out, right?
Yes.
You get kicked out of the group. I can, of course, say I'm a health coach, and sometimes I'll do that. But I'm not to the point where I'm reaching out to people now and saying, hey, I can really help you with that diaper rash. I know how frustrating it is when your baby their bum's bleeding. Like, I know how frustrating that is. I can help you. I don't do that anymore. I go to people who are already in front of these moms, right? And so my goal is to reach as many influential people like yourself, right? Because that's where I think the biggest impact can be made. And if I can show you a system that fits into your business, which is what my expertise is, we didn't really go into this, but for 20 years I helped doctors' offices, or for 10 years I helped doctors' offices implement systems and marketing and billing and new patient acquisition and retention, right? And so I've taken some of the things I learned in business for my first decade, and I've really implemented it into my doTerra business. So now I can take people who are influential, that are busy, and I can say, hey, here's a system that will work for you, where you can grow doTerra, you can make a bigger impact and get time freedom. So I love what I do. It fuels me. I always tell people, like, my first thing is I'm a healer before I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is really fun. I wouldn't say I'm like the most amazing entrepreneur. I'm like really bad at managing employees and things like that. But business partners and other entrepreneurs, that's my jam. I will connect. I will nurture. I will support. That's where I'm good. Hiring and training and like leading employees, not so good, not so much. But that's what I love about this business. Like, I have one assistant and she's part-time.
Yeah.
Most of the time 7-figure earners they have a whole team.
Yep.
Right? That are on payroll. And I love that this business model, doTerra, takes care of all that for me. They're my shipping department, my international team, my everything, my marketing team. They do it all.
Yeah.
So I just have a personal assistant. It's so nice.
I love that. Yeah, and I was just on the phone with a friend of mine who's interested, and he has like his own brick and mortar business, and same thing. Like, he's, people forget all these costs that they have to do this. You can do this all remote, and he doesn't. The cost to keep the lights on, but then product is like, you don't have to worry. Like, that product's just getting shipped out, and it's really it's easy. Really, it's a plug and play system. Right?
Totally. I don't have to fly to Somalia to check out the frankincense and make sure it's being sourced right. You know what I mean? doTerra's got a sourcing team for that, and they're super transparent. I can see everything that's going on. Everything's recorded. Everything, But yeah, I remember hitting in doTerra about $40,000 of income in a month, and this doctor approached me and he's like, "Let's open this day spa together." And I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna open a day spa." And I remember like working with him, being part owner, working 80 hours a week. After even after a year, I was like, this is for the birds. I was like, are you kidding me? I can work at home, grow my doTerra business to $100,000 a month without managing employees. And that's what I did. I was like, I'm done here. Like, I don't want a brick and mortar because of the headache of just everything, the training, the product, the ordering, the billing, the equipment, the lights, the everything, the managing, the training. It was like exhausting.
It is, yeah.
And I was like 80 hours, and it wasn't even, I didn't make any money. I made zero money. In fact, I put money into it.
Yep.
So
I think, and I know we're aligned, it's one of the things I love is, yes, putting a health coach in every home. I think that's super important. And I try to tell people, what one of my mentors, Dave Meltzer, says is, he's got 3 things that he focuses on: make a lot of money, have a lot of fun, and have a lot of impact.
Yeah.
And doTerra for me aligns completely with that. And you can do all those 3 things. And I mean, that doesn't get any better than that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's get down to oils. Top 5 oils that, what would you say were the top 5? Of course there's more, but top 5 you would say everybody should have in their home right
Everybody now. In their home, I think, needs a respiratory oil. So Breathe. I'd go with Breathe, definitely. On Guard, you need an immune system oil. I would say frankincense. It's just overall wellness, inflammation. It's a maximizer. It's calmer. It's good for your skin. It's good for so many things. You got to have a citrus oil. You got to have a citrus oil for cleaning and in your water and boosting brain energy and detoxification, glutathione recycling. And then I would say for sure a calming oil, whether that's copaiba or serenity or magnolia, a flower oil, something that's going to reduce stress and cortisol.
Yep.
Those are my top 5.
I love that. Those are all really good ones. All right. We'll get ready and we'll kind of wrap things up. Any exciting projects that you're working on specifically right now?
Oh man, I just think these retreats. So we just got into our new home and we're doing retreats here. And I used to do retreats all across the country. I'd rent houses, fun houses, and we do really cool retreats. But having them here has been so fun. We're getting our, sauna installed with stadium seating. It's going to be this big sauna, and we're getting a cold plunge. And so it's going to be like a healing retreat. And so again, like I said, I'm a healer before I'm an entrepreneur. And so just being able to provide a healing environment, I think, is probably the most fun for me. And just spending a lot of quality time with my kids and helping them develop what they're passionate about are kind of my two big things, is developing my teams, developing my kids. I don't really have any other projects right in front of me. I probably need to create more content on social media. You guys are so good at that.
Yeah. I love that. Just what you said with the kids. Well, first of all, I was just at the retreat last month, and I was telling you, like, I've spent over $30K in the last year being in a mastermind, learning how to build this business. And I was telling you off to the side, like, I don't know if people actually realize this, but like the gems that you're dropping right now are like, I paid $30K to hear some of the things you were saying. And you don't even, if people have the energy and the heart, like, you don't charge anything, like, just come to the retreat, show up, and give me all your attention, and be a builder in doTerra. So I think what you're doing is just really cool, and I appreciate that, and I want other people to know, like, it's very cool, like the things that we're doing and we're building here. And then like I get to see all the time when you do content, you can see the fun that you're having with your kids, and you guys are doing things together. So that's always neat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wanted to kind of jump into some lightning round questions and then wrap things up. But before I do, is there anything that you can think of that I didn't ask you that you wish I had?
No, I think you covered it. You're so thorough.
I try to be.
Great interviewer.
Yeah. Well, if I forget anything, I know where you live, and we'll come back.
And I'm very long-winded, so I think I covered quite a bit.
We'll do a part 2. All right, let's jump into some lightning round questions. I'm curious, with everything that like, is there a choice, or were there some choices that you made in your life that you think made you who you are today?
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question.
I know it is. And you probably answered it with just your story, so maybe we don't even have to revisit it, but I don't know. I'm just curious.
I think, gosh, every step up till now has made me who I am today. But I think, oh man, what a deep question. So many choices you make in life are shaped by your upbringing. And being able to just in my mid-40s recognize what were my decisions based on that upbringing as opposed to what was really in my best interest. But then recognizing my authentic individuality and recognizing some of the toxic patterns from, even though I had a great family environment, my mom and dad were extremely loving. There's just belief systems, right?
Yeah.
And so even though I feel like I made decisions based on false belief systems, they made me who I am today.
Yeah.
So like the husband that I have now, there's no way I could appreciate him. I just appreciate him on such a deep level. And I think that's by design, by divine design, because people like my husband, Walter, they can be taken for granted, Yeah. They show up. They're always there. He's so thoughtful. He's selfless.
I've never seen him in a bad mood. Although
I rarely see him in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Of course, it's very, he always, if he is in a bad mood, he says, well, I can't be totally perfect. Yeah. So he says, I gotta have a couple flaws. I said, yeah, you're right. I forgive you. But yeah, and I just think that if I had not gone through some of the relationships I had gone through previously, like, he wouldn't be appreciated the way he deserves to be appreciated. But because
same for him too. I think he would.
Yeah, I think so too for him. Yeah, he appreciates me in a way that I don't think he could have either.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about appreciating and being in that place of gratitude for the spouse that you have, it just makes life really rich.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say that's probably my best, like, previous romantic relationships and marriages. I only had one marriage, one previous romantic relationship, one previous marriage. But those led me to a place of like this immense gratitude for the relationship I have.
I love that.
So even though I could say those relationships were mistakes, they weren't really. They were learning opportunities. So
especially if you never actually learn from it. I know for you too, like you said, you've developed that ability to actually take a step back and like, look, why am I so reactive, or why do I do these things? What is the story that I made? What are the beliefs that I have? And it's like you're grateful for that you're able to. I just turned 40, and I know people 40s and 50s, like they still haven't learned that, and I'm like, wow, like that's like, I'm not saying I'm perfect either, and I got a lot more growth to do, but
Yeah.
man, if you don't see that, it's kind of hard to change ever
Yeah.
or get better, right? All right, you're such a force in the wellness world. Who inspires you?
Oh man, some of my mentors, gosh, just from early on, Fred DiDomenico, he's awesome with elite coaching as a chiropractic coach. Very wise, very good at communication and helping people be empowered. Dr. Josh Axe, incredible mentor and friend of mine. My brothers have been awesome, just there for me, spiritual mentors and financial mentors. Highly empathetic. So, and they're super successful. My brothers are all like multi-millionaires. They make me look tiny when it comes to comes to that stuff. But they always build me up. They pretend like I'm the rich one. They're like 10 times richer than me. It's pretty funny. But so I like to hang out with people that are like super successful and fulfilled. So that's kind of who I hang out with and aspire to be like. So, you know, those are the people in my life that I hang with. Russell Brunson is a really awesome. He probably doesn't know this, but I obviously look up to him quite a bit. He was my son's wrestling coach, and just seeing just who he is in his life, the way he is with his family and his business, and always at wrestling practice, and how he just treats people. So just seeing his example and the way he treats people, he's a big example and influence as well.
Beautiful. I'm a big reader. Are there any books that had just a huge impact on your life, or is there like a top 1 to 3? You don't have to list them all, but I know for me, I could probably name off dozens, but yeah. I mean, is there a top 1 to 3 books that just had that you would say, you know what, so you should probably read this too?
Some of my favorite books have been just as I started my doTerra journey. But there's a book called Extreme Ownership. Yeah, by Jocko.
Jocko Willink, yeah.
Yeah, and I love all his books. They're so good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I respond well to bluntness.
Yeah.
So I really like his approach.
Jocko's pretty blunt.
Yeah, I really like anything John C. Maxwell writes. His stuff is so good
on
leadership and growth and essentialism. Incredible book, and I'm always trying to read stuff to better myself. So
yeah. Last 2 questions, we'll wrap it up. Any rituals or hacks or practices? You mentioned gratitude, being grateful, people have gratitude journals, but yeah, anything that you do on like a regular basis?
Yeah, I'm actually getting really into like Joe Dispenza meditations. They've been really powerful for me just with my neuroprogramming and trying to rewire some of my false beliefs from childhood or traumas or what may be, and just teaching me that, I can start fresh every day. I can start fresh. I don't have to create from my past and patterns, and just really moving forward with that's been a challenge, learning how to like quiet my mind and getting it out of beta and getting it into like, I guess they call it alpha, would be the non-analytical mind. That's been a really cool thing. And we just ordered a cold plunge, and there's nothing I hate more than cold anything.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to do is really get out of my comfort zone to get to the next level in my life and in my health. And cold plunging, trust me, it will be a tough one for me mentally.
Yeah.
I've done it a couple times, and it's been just pure hell. So I want to get to the point where I just love it.
Well, you have no excuse now. You can get in there every day.
Yeah. New experiences. I took a cold shower this morning.
That's a good way to start.
Yeah, it was really rough, but I'm trying to do new experiences and just retrain my brain and just to get to that next level. And yeah, that's what I'm doing.
I love that. And I think the top performers, I always see they have a growth mindset, and that's, and I see people with these fixed mindsets, they just stop. They plateau, and that's it. Or they accept like this is where they're good at.
Yeah.
And for you, I love it that it's not like, let's keep going. Like, how else can I get better? How else can I grow? Yeah. Last but not least, where can people connect with you, learn more about you, and maybe even if they want to, this podcast, it wasn't the intention. It was more, I love to highlight people that, in my opinion, are, first of all, promoting health in a different way than the Western model, because I've never seen anybody get fixed from that. So that's number one. And I love interviewing disruptive people in their industry that are doing something completely different and that will just change people's lives. But, so yeah, if people want to connect with you, learn more about you, or maybe they're even like curious of like how to like, hey, this actually interests me. I want to be on Melody's team and I want to learn how to build this 6 to 7 figure business. How can they do that?
Well, I'm probably most active on Instagram. So just Melody C. Watts on Instagram. But if anybody wants to join my team, they got to go through you.
All right, let's go.
They got to connect with Joel, baby.
Yeah. So connect with me, and then you also have I just want to make sure you have a great website too, because Instagram, you never know, they might cancel you.
Yeah.
You post some things, natural health people sometimes get banned. So Instagram, Melody C. Watts, but also you have a great really
melodywatts.net, melodywatts.net. You can connect with me there. I've got a lot of courses and a contact and email list. You get a stress and essential oils ebook there, how to manage your stress using essential oils, and it's a really intensive deep book.
Yeah, and anybody that you put together this really nice practitioner course. It's like a 10 video course.
Oh yeah.
If anybody watches that video and they want to join our team, they can send us an email, and you can send me an email, info@joelevancoaching.com. And I will send you some product, as well as you'll be a part of our team, and we can start going. That's probably the best way. I think everybody should just watch that. It's free education. It's free, but at the end of it, you watch all 10 videos, and you want to learn more about doTerra. We will send you some free product, and you can be on our team.
Yeah, so that's
amazing world changers.
So that one, melodywatts.net, teach me.
Teach me. There we go.
/teach me is where you get the course, and it's practitioners, a lot of doctors teaching how to use essential oils. So you don't have to worry about misinformation.
It's all, and that course is great because it covers a variety of topics: pregnancy, stress, immunity,
metabolic health, inflammation, neurotransmitters. We go into deep stuff. It's an awesome course.
Yeah. Awesome. So amazing having you. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.